I'm Tara. Thanks for joining me for another Crafting with Curly Cues video. Today I'm going to be recreating a card that I made a long time ago that I have up in my Etsy shop, and it had already sold and somebody reordered it, so now I'm going to recreate it, and it was kind of fun because I've got to tell you, I've learned a lot since then. So let's go ahead and dive in here. I'm going to take that adorable Say Cheese stamp set by Lawn Fawn, and I'm going to start by using this Polaroid frame to create some of the elements of my card. And I am just using my Memento Tuxedo Black ink to go ahead and ink that up, and I'm just going to stamp it on some Neenah 110 pound solar white cardstock. And then I'm going to take this Science of Love stamp set that I just swoon over. I think this is so cute. I love nerdy stuff. My family's totally gloriously nerdy, so I can relate to this stamp set. And I'm going to take these two little Nerdy Bird love birds here, and I'm going to stamp them also in Memento because I am going to be coloring all of these in with my Copics. So I am just going to do some pretty basic Copic coloring. I had a question on one of my other videos. Somebody asked how I'm able to blend on cardstock with my Copics, and I gotta tell you, I just practice. I mean, I know that sounds pretty cheesy and like a cop-out with the advice, but when I started, it was tricky, and I was like, people are crazy. These Copics do not work like the videos say they do. But after you kind of use them and you get the feel for what they can do, you get a real sense of how saturated you want your paper to get them to blend. I find that different color groups really work differently. The pinks and the reds tend to bleed a lot, so if you oversaturate, you're going to go outside your lines. These particular blues that I'm using here blend really easily, so I like to go to them because I know that I'm going to get a good blend. So it's really just getting a feel for it. I do only ever use this Neenah 110 pound solar white cardstock, and I got mine on Amazon. I got a giant ream of it for like $17 or something like that. I will link to it over at my blog. And it has lasted me probably 8 months, and I make cards on a pretty regular basis, so it's just a really good investment. It's nice paper, it's really smooth, it takes the Copic ink really well. I even bought some Copic like paper made just for Copics, and I had a really hard time with that, and I went right back to my Neenah. So that's my kind of advice without really giving advice, is just practice. I do like to saturate with my lighter color. I find that helps me blend better. And then find a cardstock that works for you. It may not be the Neenah, but find something that works with your style of coloring and the amount of pressure you like to apply with your pens and such, and then just stick with it. Like, don't try to use something just because lots of other people are using it. If you found something that works for you, just stick with it. So this here on this Polaroid frame, I gotta tell you, this is one of the bigger spaces I've ever colored with my Copics. I don't ever do backgrounds with my Copics because I'm terrified. I don't know how to do it. I watch the other videos in awe of people who can background color with Copics, but this for me is a really large space, and I decided to go ahead and give it a try because you can't really mess it up. It's just a Polaroid frame, so I'm not really going for anything too fancy or special here. And I just kind of wanted to create an ombre look at the bottom of this frame with some of these pinks. When I made this card the first time, I used Distress ink. And I just decided this time that, well, I have my Copics out, and to keep the consistency of the look, and since I've practiced a lot with my Copics since the first time I made this card, I just want to give this a shot. So with these particular colors that I picked, I am doing a lot of that tip-to-tip technique because they don't blend super well on their own. So you have to kind of create that medium shade. And you can see I kind of left a little bit of, it's not a perfect blend, but I think that's okay for what this image is. So again, practice. This was me practicing on something. So that's just pretty much how you learn. So now that I've got everything colored in, I'm going to go ahead and take my craft knife here, and I'm going to cut out the middle of this Polaroid because I do want to just use this as a frame. So I am just going around all four sides of the inside there, and I am just going to pop that right out and get that taken care of, and then I'm going to go ahead and fussy cut with my scissors the rest of that Polaroid right up against the line. So you can see that when I colored, I just kind of went all over the place. Another reason I was excited about practicing with this image is because I knew I was going to cut it out and I didn't have to stay inside the lines, so I could really just work on the blending and not have to worry about being super precise with my coloring. So now that those are cut out, I'm going to take the coordinating dies for this die set, and I love the coordinating dies for stamp sets. I think that it's a super fun idea. I will tell you that I don't always buy them because they do tend to be a little bit more spendy and I would rather buy more stamps. But for this stamp set, I just had to have them because I don't know how I would cut out those super cute little like curly horn rim glasses that little Nerdy Birds got going on there. So the dies for this set are really handy. So I ran those through my Big Shot and then you can see they're perfectly cut out there. So before I started, I did cut out with my Stitched Rectangle Dies by Lawn Fawn a piece of vellum and also a piece of patterned paper. And that is a pad by My Mind's Eye that I've had forever and ever. I'll list the name of it over at my blog on that pattern paper in the background. But I'm just going to take that Polaroid frame and trace it onto my vellum with some really light pencil lines because I'm going to do some heat embossed stamping to fill in the background of this Polaroid, and it's going to go right on that vellum piece. So I wanted to have an idea of where to stamp so that I kept it inside that Polaroid and didn't end up all over my paper. So I'm using my Versamark ink, and I'm going to take a couple of the other images that come with this really cute Nerdy Bird stamp set, and it is these little beaker bottles full of love potion, I can only assume because of the lovebirds. And I'm going to start stamping, and then I realized that I want to do some masking because I wanted to get more partial pieces of those bottles. So I just took a stack of Post-it notes and I'm just putting a little Post-it on each side of that square there and kind of masking off so that I'm free to stamp wherever I like. And this is one area where the first time that I made this card, I didn't really know about masking. So I just tried really hard to stay inside the lines and it didn't look great. So this is an improvement. So that was something that I learned. So that was fun. I used my super fine detail white Ranger embossing powder and just put some embossing powder on there and then went ahead and heat set that with my heat tool. So now that that is all taken care of, I'm going to go ahead and take my pencil and just go back through and erase all those little guidelines that I had put on there. And then I'm going to bust out the same Copics that I used to color my Polaroid frame. And I'm going to flip that vellum over and color in those beakers on the back of the vellum. Now you can see that my lids don't match. So then when you flip it over, you get that cool color shining through and it looks like perfectly colored because it's on the other side. So it looks really cool. But anyway, that's not the right lid for that marker. Am I the only one that does that? Do you guys ever grab, like when you're using multiple pens and then I'm constantly putting the wrong lid on? Then I have all these markers with two lids and I have to figure out which one is the right one. And anyway, those lids are reversed from what I'm actually coloring with. They are the right colors, they're just the opposite marker. So I just colored in those beakers, no shading, nothing fancy, just those two different shades of pink. And then when I come back in with my Polaroid frame, you can see that I have only stamped right in the middle of that Polaroid, and you can see that color coming through from the back side of the vellum. So I thought that was super fun. Before I adhere this Polaroid, I'm going to take my Black Soot Distress Marker and I'm just going to paint the edges black so that you can't see any of that white cardstock, and that just helps make it look like I cut it out perfectly on the lines. And this is a nice easy image to do that with because it's all nice and square. And then I'm going to use my Zig glue pen and I'm just going to come in and put a little bit of adhesive on the back of that frame, and I'm going to go ahead and glue that down to my vellum. So this is going to kind of give me my background for building everything else that I'm doing here. So now that I have that on there, I'm going to use an acrylic block and just put that on there to put a little bit of weight on that adhesive so that it sticks nice and sturdy on that vellum. And now I'm going to go ahead and work on my sentiment. So before I started filming, I did die cut this Scripty Love. I don't know what brand my die is, but there are some really great Scripty Love dies on the market, and I'll be sure to link to one over my blog for you. And then I'm going to take a sentiment that comes in the stamp set, and it's just you plus me equals. So the stamp set has a really cute like little calculator and all kinds of fun stuff you can do with this sentiment, and I decided to make them Nerdy Birds. And so I went ahead and stamped that in Versamark, and I'm just going to heat emboss that with the same white embossing powder here. Now you can see because I rocked my stamp a little bit, I did end up getting some powder where I didn't want it. So I just took a dry paintbrush and brushed that right off there, and that is going to make it like it never happened. So I went ahead and heat set that, and so now I'm ready to start assembling my card. And I'm just going to take that piece of vellum, and I want it to be kind of crooked on the front of that card's pattern paper panel there, and I just have a little hole punch, and I'm going to go to each corner and just put a little hole through both sheets of that paper, excuse me, gosh, that was bad grammar, Anyway, my husband's an English teacher, he would be appalled. And I'm just going to use some brads to go ahead and affix that vellum to the pattern paper. And part of why this is part of my design is because back when I first originally made this card, I was like completely baffled as to how to adhere vellum. I never used it because I never could figure out what adhesive to use. So I thought that this was a good way to get your vellum to stick to your card without having to even bother with adhesive, and bonus, it's cute. So to make this lay flat on my card, I am going to go ahead and pop this whole panel up using some foam tape, and that way the back of those brads don't affect the way that this sits on the front of the card. And I'm just going to cut some little pieces to put in the corners as well so that the whole panel is sturdy. And then I'm just going to fit that right on the front of my card. This is the size of an A2 card front. So we've got a side folding card base there, which I also made with some Neenah cardstock. So now everything's on there, and all I have to do is pop my elements on. I'm just going to use my Zig Glue pen to go ahead and put some glue on the back of that little scripty love word and pop it down there at the bottom. I really love that little sentiment. I think that is so cute. And then my little lovebirds, they get to sit up in the Polaroid. So I imagine this is like if the lovebirds went to like the Chemistry Nerd Carnival convention, and this is like their Polaroid that they took in the photo booth. That's what this card is. So make sure that that's the lens that you look at this through. Photo booths, very, very popular right now. So there's my little lovebirds in their little photo booth photo, and I did take some wood veneer hearts, and I'm just kind of scattering those around the picture there so that they can clearly be very in love. They're just floating in all their little love there. And now I'm going to take some Ranger Multimedia Matte, and I'm just going to squirt a little tiny bit of that onto my glass craft mat here, and then I'm going to take each of those little hearts and just very lightly dip it in that that glue there, and then just stick it on the card. This glue is fabulous because it does dry matte, so if it squishes out from your little tiny embellishments, when it dries, you're not even going to know that it's there, which is amazing. And it's also super, super sticky, so you can count on those little things not coming off. So I decided that these little hearts needed to have some color, so I'm going to take my Jelly Roll pens in a couple different shades of pink, and I'm just going to color right on the top of those wood veneer pieces. The trick to this, I think, is to have a light hand. That little ball at the end of the Jelly Roll pen has to be able to roll around in there to get the ink to come out. So if you push too hard on that hard surface of the wood, it doesn't allow that little ball to roll. But if you don't push too hard, it comes out really great, and I think it always looks really cool when it's done. It's one of my favorite ways to do the wood veneer accents. So no card would be complete without some Wink of Stella. So we got some Wink of Stella on our little bird friends, as well as on that scripty love there. And then I'm going to finish everything up with some glossy accents. So whenever I have a critter with some glasses, I have to put glossy accents on it because I wear glasses and I always have a glare on my eyeballs in every photo. So if you have glasses, you have to have the glare on your eyeballs, and the only way to do that is to get glossy accents on there. And then one of my favorite tricks with those wood veneer embellishments, as well as coloring them with the gel pens, is to then go back over and put a layer of glossy accents. And I think that the sparkly gel pens underneath the glossy accents look really, really cool on those wood veneer hearts. It almost looks like you have an enamel accent that you've created all on your own. So that is going to finish up the card. So thank you so much for joining me as I recreate this card from my past here. There's a little close-up of these cute little lovebirds for you. Thank you guys so much for watching today. I really hope you hit subscribe, give me a thumbs up. I'm going to go ahead and list all the supplies that I used over at my blog. You can join me on Pinterest, Instagram, and Facebook. And then here I have some links to some of my other videos for you, so go check those out. Thanks so much, guys. Bye.